The snow fell heavy that night. Thick flakes drifted from the sky, swallowing the pine forest in an endless white silence. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it suffocates. Every step in the snow was a betrayal, crunching like broken bones beneath the weight of boots. The forest didn't want visitors, it wanted offerings. This was the kind of night when legends weren't whispered, they came alive. In the far reaches of northern Minnesota, deep inside tribal land where even the hunters refused to step in winter, a group of 5 college friends thought they were chasing adventure. They wanted isolation, a cabin in the woods, a weekend away from phones, noise, and the constant glow of city lights. What they didn't know was that the woods were already claimed, and something hungry was waiting. Locals had warned them. At the last gas station before the wilderness, an old man behind the counter had stared too long, his voice low when he spoke. "Storm's coming, don't go past the ridge. That land isn't for people anymore. It belongs to something else." But of course they laughed it off. Kids raised on horror movies always laugh, until the script they're writing with their lives turns into the very nightmare they mocked. By the time they parked the SUV near the abandoned logging road, the snowfall had thickened, and the sky was closing in like a lid over the earth. The forest swallowed the sound of their voices, and the cabin, a rotting skeleton of logs left behind decades ago, stood like a warning in the clearing. They thought they'd tell ghost stories, drink, maybe even film a documentary for class. They didn't know that their names would never make it back to campus. Because once hunger finds you in the snow, the Wendigo never lets go. The first night seemed harmless. They lit a fire, the cabin filled with warmth, with laughter. But the woods outside pressed closer. Long shadows moved with the flames, bending at impossible angles, almost like they weren't just shadows, but watchers. And then came the sound. It was faint at first, a low cry drifting through the pines, somewhere between a scream and the wind. One of them swore it was just a coyote. Another said it sounded like a child. But deep down in the hollow spaces of their chests, they all felt the same truth. That wasn't an animal, that wasn't human either. As midnight pulled the forest tighter, the storm trapped them in the cabin. Walls shook, snow piled against the door, and the wind screamed like 1,000 voices clawing to get in. Somewhere beyond the storm, footsteps crunched across the clearing. Too heavy for an animal, too slow for a man. And then silence. The fire dimmed. The air thickened with a stench, rotting meat, coppery blood, and something else. Something older. They didn't know it yet, but the Wendigo had already chosen them. To understand the Wendigo, you have to understand hunger. The legend says it was once human, a hunter, a warrior, a father. But in the dead of winter, when snow buried the world and food vanished, some turned to the unthinkable. They ate their own kind. And when flesh touched their lips, something inside them broke. The soul tore open, and something ancient slid in, wearing them like a mask. The more they fed, the less human they became. Their bodies stretched into emaciated skeletons, skin clinging to bone, eyes sinking, glowing with starvation. And their hearts, if they still had any, turned to black ice. They say a Wendigo can never be full. It grows with every meal, taller, thinner, hungrier. Its voice, a mimic. It calls in the sound of your loved ones, the cries of children, the voices of the dead. And when you follow the sound into the trees, you never come back. That's what moved outside the cabin that night. Not an animal, not a man, but a hunger that could never die. The next morning, one of them was gone, his bedroll empty, his boots missing from the corner. At first, they thought he'd wandered into the woods to relieve himself, but the tracks outside told a different story. Bare footprints pressed deep into the snow, leading into the forest. Not away, not running, but as if something had walked him out, step by step, into the storm. They called his name, no answer. Just the echo of their own voices swallowed by the trees. And then faintly the sound of his voice calling back, "Guys, it over here, help." But it wasn't coming from where the tracks led. It was coming from deeper in the forest, from nowhere, from everywhere at once. The voice cracked, the tone bent. It dragged syllables like they were bones breaking. "Help me." The snow fell heavier. The forest leaned closer, and they realized the old man at the gas station wasn't warning them out of superstition. He was giving them a chance to live, a chance they'd already wasted. They shut the cabin door, bolted it, and told themselves it was fine, that their friend would find his way back. But none of them believed it. The woods had swallowed him whole, and now every crack in the cabin felt like a mouth waiting to feed. The storm howled louder, but beneath it, always beneath it, the sound of footsteps circled. Slow, deliberate crunch, pause, crunch. They barely slept, and when the morning came, light did not bring comfort. The sun never broke through the clouds, just a dim gray glow that made the world look lifeless. They rationed their food, but already supplies were low. A weekend cabin trip, they'd called it. Snacks, beer, a little meat. Not nearly enough to survive a storm that seemed endless. And that's when the hunger began. At first it was mild. Growls in their stomachs, complaints. But by the second day, their skin felt thinner, their tempers sharper, and the cold gnawed at them like teeth under the flesh. They found themselves staring at each other differently. Not as friends, as meat. That night, another one vanished. This time there were no footprints outside, no open door. Just an empty space where he had been sleeping. The others woke to find blood smeared across the floorboards, thin trails leading toward the fireplace, and then nothing. One of them screamed. Another demanded they search the woods. But the leader, the one who had driven them here, just stared into the flames, his face pale, his lips trembling, because outside in the storm a new sound had begun. The missing friend's voice, calling, crying, begging. "It's so cold, please, let me in." But the voice didn't come from the door. It came from the roof. They pressed their backs to the wall, staring upward as snow sifted down from the rafters. Something moved above the cabin, pacing with the weight of starvation. Long claws scraped against the wood. And then, in the gap where the roof beams had rotted, they saw it. Two eyes, burning like dying coals. The shape bent low, its head tilting unnaturally, the outline of antlers or bones twisting upward into the sky. Its body was too thin, skin clinging to an endless frame, ribs sharp against the hide. And its mouth, stretched, broken, too wide, lined with teeth that didn't belong to anything human. The Wendigo, it didn't attack. Not yet, it wanted something else. The legend was true, it wasn't just a beast. It was hunger itself, and hunger waits. Hunger watches. Hunger breaks you from the inside before it takes the R. By the third day, the cabin had become a coffin. The snow outside rose taller than the windows. The firewood dwindled, and so did their sanity. Every creak was a claw, every gust of wind a scream. They began to accuse each other. Someone had left the door unlocked. Someone had eaten more than their share. Someone wasn't telling the truth. And in the silence between arguments, they heard chewing. Soft, wet chewing just outside the cabin walls. When they opened the shutters, there was nothing, just snow, deep red snow. The leader tried to keep control, but even his voice cracked when he repeated the old story, the one he had read once in a forgotten book. The Wendigo doesn't just hunt, it infects. It whispers in your hunger, in your weakness. The more you starve, the louder it calls. And if you taste flesh, human flesh, you become it. The others laughed nervously, said it was just a story. But no one laughed when they caught one of their friends staring too long at the body heat rising from their skin, licking his lips in the dim firelight. And that night, when they awoke to the sound of tearing meat, the truth arrived. One of them had broken. He crouched by the fire, hands trembling, chewing on something pale and thin. Fingers. Human fingers. Their missing friend's hand, frozen and gnawed. His eyes were wild, his teeth stained. His voice cracked when he whispered, "I couldn't help it. It called me. It told me to." The others screamed, fought, but it was too late. The Wendigo had its first seat inside the cabin. From then on, the cabin wasn't safe. Not from the monster outside. Not from the monster inside. They tied the cannibal down, but his screams grew unbearable. His body twisted, his bones cracking in the dark as if something inside was remaking him. His skin split with frost and veins blackened with hunger. By morning, the ropes hung loose, and where he had been tied, only claw marks remained. Outside, two voices called from the trees now. Both familiar, both broken, both hungry. "It's warmer out here. Come with us." The survivors, just three now, huddled together, praying for morning. But morning was just gray, just more snow, just more silence.